Namo tassa bhagavata arahata samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavata arahata samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavata arahata samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami. To everyone.
Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya, everyone.
Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya to all. Most welcome again.
Yes.
For this session. And I congratulate you all that last week you had a good work, done very good work, Dhamma work in Kanchipuram.
Yes.
So congratulations to all who had been a part of it. So today we would be starting about the, I think last week we have started book 3 and we had completed part 1 of it and some part of part 2. But the part 2 is so much important that it actually talks about the real Dhamma which has to be practiced by each and everyone and how it goes. As in first chapter it was explained that Buddha is not a kind of revelation. His Dhamma is not a kind of revelation because he never gave him or introduced himself as the prophet or any god. He is, it is very clearly mentioned here that he explains yes the salvation where he says that salvation is saving of the souls from to be sent to hell, and this is never talked in a Buddha's teaching. So it's not even a God's command, and he is not himself a prophet or a messenger. Now in further he says, therefore it is said that those who talk about revelation is a religion. This indirectly we are getting to know the Buddha's teachings are not religious. Okay? We always, because there is no other word to be used by ourselves. When we talk of Buddha's teachings, we always say it is dharma. But it is not dharma, it is not a religion. He explains here that it is revelation, is not a religion at all. Then what he says, that the actual discovery what Buddha has done is regarding the human life, the condition of human life. He has went through the results of inquiry and investigation, what he has done about the human life conditions, and also understand the natural way of living of human being and the nature of human. Means two things he is talking about here. The understanding is between the natural atmosphere which is making a human to live in that condition, and the other thing, the nature of a human. So he investigated this all, and he molded the instincts and dispositions which man has formed. And because of this, the nature and the natural, these both two things are combining, and it formed a history and the tradition. So we are living in history. We are taking the tradition as the history without understanding that tradition is helpful for our helpful or benefit for our life or not. So these things are going on, and therefore Buddha talks on this. And here he clearly mentions that he is only the path giver. He only tells that this is the way you have to follow. And therefore he compares, differentiate between the Mokshadatta and Margadatta. Now, a very good example is given here that is very much important for, especially for the people in robes. Till now, I am finding when I was going through it again, earlier also I had gone through it, but it did not made me realize the importance of it. But this time, I am shocked to read this, because this is the proper way how Buddha has a discussion with a Brahmin named as Mogalan. Now here, how it goes, it's kind of a story we say, but it's a real incident happened in Shravasti. And it says that that time the Tathagata was living in Migar's mother's house, and it was a kind of building, maybe multi-storied building, it is said here. And I just remembered, our experience always is compared with the things which we read. When I started my journey in robes, especially in Tamil Nadu, I did not find more vihars to stay. So the upasakas in the Tamil Nadu, they made my arrangement in many of their houses. Okay. And it was questioned by many people, how can a person in robe live in a house? And I said, there is no vihar. So where will we stay? And here I found it that Buddha was living in a house. It was a multi-story building. I just compared it, So living in someone's house is no issue at all. The issue is how we work. What is our duty? And here, it's in this place, when Tathagata was staying in a multi-storied building in Miga's Mata's house, there a Brahmin named Mogilana, he comes to meet Buddha, and after having a good friendly greetings with each other, exchanging the greetings and all, he sat to one side and he questions. Instead of questions, he tells the Tathagata, and later he questions. What he says, I will just read and explain, because it's very important. This is the 14th point. If you have book in front of you, you can go through it. The 14th point, it says, just as Master Gautama, one gets a gradual view of this multi-storied house, a progress, a graduated path, and so on, right up to the last step of the stairs. That means he is explaining Buddha about the steps which are there to climb the stories, the stairs. Just so is the progressive training of a Brahmin. He is comparing the stairs which leads a person to the upper part of the building, and he says that the stairs are like you are progressing on it, you're graduating on it, you're going from low to above till the last step, that is the end. There you are going, and he says, accordingly, the Brahmins are being trained. See, now the word is coming here, training, which is missing in our Buddhism. Every time, nowhere we talk about the training, you know. So here it is saying that Brahman is saying they have the progressive training. And the training is the course of study in the Vedas. What Veda is taught, it is the course of study, and it is very progressive, like the stairs going from downstairs to upstairs. And thus the Brahmins are trained. Now again he asked, just as in the course of archery, Gautama, with us the Brahmins, the training, the progress, the approach is step by step. For instance, in counting, and he says, our training is not usual. The Brahmin is saying here that the training of Brahmin is not usual. It is step by step training. And the training, the steps are being counted. You know, the steps are being counted. How they are counted? He says, when we take a private pupil, we make him count. See, this is the first step we have completed. This is the second step we had completed. Likewise, he says, 1, 1, twice 2, thrice 3, and it goes up to 100. These are the steps which have been followed while training a Brahmin according to the course of study in Vedas. He is telling to Buddha. Then he asked, now is it possible, Master Gautama, for you to point to a similar progressive training on the part of your followers in your Dhamma? This is a very big question which is to be asked by each and every Buddhist, especially the people in robes, whether they know this or not. You know, this question is very important, where he is questioning Buddha, point out a similar progressive training as the Brahmins are getting the training. Training of the followers who are following the Dhamma. And Buddha replies, this reply each and every people in robe has to know, be known. And if they are not doing that, it is the duty of the Buddhist people to make it understand to the person in robes. And also it is the duty of the people, the Buddhist people, to make arrangement for this kind of training. So what Buddha replies to the Moggallana? It is so, Brahmana. Take the case, Brahmin, of a clever horse trainer. He compares it with a horse trainer. So Buddha's teaching is like a horse trainer. Buddha is a horse trainer. He takes a thoroughred in hand. Thoroughred means what we, in Hindi we say lagam, the thread which is fixed with the face of the horse, you know.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that thread is held by the trainer to keep horse in control. So he says this is the first step. See, now Buddha is explaining according to the step-by-step training. I don't know how many of us know about this, you know. So this is the first, it's like a horse training. And he says this is the first step. And then we take the next step. That is the further course. So he said, just so Brahmin, the Tathagata takes in hand a man. Instead of horse, he gives the example of a horse. And for himself, he says a horse trainer. But now he says that Tathagata takes a man in hand by holding the thread, the thread, which is like a thread hold the horse. He takes in hand a man who is to be trained and gives him his first lesson. So the first lesson is to take the man or the person who want to follow the Buddha has to be controlled by the teacher like a horse trainer. This is the first lesson. And what it says, come thou brother. Because it's a human, no? It's not a horse. So what Buddha says, when we take the man in hand, we say, come thou brother. It's very polite, huh? Come thou brother, be virtuous abide. Means you have to be such a nice natured person and you have to be very, what we can say, promising. You have to be, like you have to take the oath that you will remain. You won't leave anytime. You won't live in between. So accordingly, taking in hand means we have to make that person understand, like a good human being with a good human nature, one has to be there with for that to be till the last, to abide, constrained by the restraint of the obligation, leaving all the duties what you were having, which were obstructing you to come here. And because you were untrained, you were helpless because of your duties, you have to come out of it. You have to take that decision. This is the first step whenever anyone comes to the Buddha or in someone in robes to know the Dhamma. The first step is to come with full obligations, we can say here. It would be the only duty to learn and have the training, which is been given by the Tathagata or the person at present now. Those who are giving the training, they should not leave any person after giving robe like a horse just left out after giving the robes. This has been going in India, you know. In India, the bhikkhu and bhikkhunis, they are giving the robes as a samnera and samneri, and they are leaving them like what they can do whatever they want. They are not under them. They don't want to keep them under them. They don't want to give the training because maybe they don't know this, that what's the duty is. So here we are, it's not that the Buddha is telling about the duty, what he is doing it to the Brahmana, telling to the Brahmana about what he is, his step-by-step training is, but it is actually now at present, we have to understand that the one who is taking the duty to train a person in robes and also the Buddhist followers and also the one who want to take the training and who want to know the teachings of Buddha. So this is two way we have to understand here now. And this is the first step we said, that one has to give up everything to take the training. Now, the second one is saying, becoming versed in the practice of right behavior. The second step here is the practice of right behavior. Means when a person comes to Tathagata, he tells them to behave properly. to behave rightly, seeing danger in trifling faults, because small things we neglect, but they are the thing which are very much dangerous, very much dangerous. So these dangerous small minute things we have to be careful about and to undertake the training and be the pupil in moralities. Therefore, it is said that the first training, after coming for training, the second one is to be trained in moralities. I remember when I took the Rome and came to Tamil Nadu, some people there, they were saying, you only talk of morality and nothing else. You only talk of Panchashil and you're not talking of any Dhamma. I said, talking of Dhamma means what? The foundation is Trishan Panchashil. Unless and until people does not understand Trishan Panchashil, how can we talk of the future steps? What we say it is Dhamma. Isn't Trishan Panchashil as foundation of Dhamma? So yeah, I found this, through Buddha, what he is talking to, he is giving the reply to the Moggallana. That is, the second step is to check the right behavior by looking at and destroying the minute faults and bringing them, the pupil, under the morality training. Okay, this is the second. Now, the next step, Buddha is explaining step by step. It's very important chapter. The next step was, it says, as soon as he has mastered all that, means mastered in means what? In morality, in right behavior. It is mastered in morality and right behavior. Without that, the next step cannot be followed. Because here Buddha is talking about the mastering that. We just take Rishan Panchashil, we don't master in it, This is our fault. Daily, morning, evening, whenever we think, we take Trishan Panchashil, but we are not following the Dhamma because we are not ready to master in it. We are still confused. We are very much confused that we say we won't be able to follow the Trishan Panchashil because it's very difficult in a day-to-day life. So it is not mastering. And here Buddha says, after mastering, as soon as he has mastered all that, the Tathagata gives him his second lesson. The second lesson here is, come thou brother, now you have mastered, you're mastered in your moralities, you're mastered in your right behavior. Seeing on its seeing on an object with the eye, be not charmed by its general appearance or its detail. See, we always get very much excited by seeing something, any object which is looking very good, which is very fabulous to look, which is very interesting to look. We just see without knowing really what it is. We are charmed by it. We are excited and we accept as it is. So he says, just do not be charmed by its general appearance. It's just an appearance. It's just an appearance. Or its detail. You know what it says? Do not get charmed by just its appearance or its detail. Nowadays, many people, especially the young girls, I am finding it from the time I am in robes, I found when young girls comes in robes, when young girls, maybe at the age of 20, 22, in that age when the girls comes in robe, people get so excited. Oh, so young girl has come in robes. They never go through it and find out whether she has come in robes, whether she knows the Dhamma or not. They just keep on calling them. They asked us, oh, Banteji, you don't have time, no, to come and tell us. You are busy in some other work, you are busy in some other program. You send that girl, you have just ordained her. You send her to us. For what? She's so nice, no? She looks so good. She's so young. Is that the way to know the Dhamma? They never say you send the person in robe who knows the Dhamma and can explain us properly. This has to be there. Who can give the proper explanation of Dhamma? Who can really give and show us the path to come out of our problems? But we are happy with the appearance. This is what Buddha says. This is the next step. So we train them that don't believe just on seeing an object, not to get very charmed, just in the general appearance or its detail. Then he says, persist in the restraint of that dejection that comes from craving, caused by the sense of sight and control. See, this is only on that seeing, because it's step by step. After that, only this comes. What you have seen, you are charmed. And it resulted in the craving. I want that. It looks very nice. I want it. It must be very good. So here he says, beware. Persist on it. Beware of it. In the restraint of because the result would be a dejection. It would result would be against what you need it. It may lead you to sadness. It may lead you to suffering, because your sense of sight is uncontrolled. This all ill states which would overwhelm one like a food. Like when we see a good food, it's very tempting. We like that food, so we want to eat it. Even if we are not hungry, even there is no space in our tummy to have that, but because we like it, we want it. And it results in what everyone knows. In the same way, Buddha says, if uncontrolled sight is there, it craves like a food. So he says the next step is to learn. Guard the sense of sight. You have to guard, you have to control, win control over the sense of sight. We don't have to get charmed. We don't have to get craving on it. Just guard yourself. Just control your sight. This is the next step which Buddha is saying. I'm remembering what the training we are giving, it is in the same way. I'm happy that I'm doing the proper way. I'm going in my training in the proper way. So I'm happy. I'm faithful to Buddha, and I hope everyone should be. The next, what he says, and so do with the other organs of sense. When you hear a sound with the ear, or smell a scent with the nose, taste a taste with the tongue, or with body, touch things tangible, and when with mind you are conscious of a thing, be not charmed with its general appearance or its depth. Like, these are all the 5 sense organs. Especially in Hindi, we say it is Gyanendriya, that is Gyan. Gyan means knowledge. The senses which gives you the knowledge. And these sense organs are the one who, by the first appearance, it gives the first knowledge, how they look like, how you can, what is the sound of that ear, what is the smell through your nose, what is the taste of what you are eating through your tongue, and what is the tangible touch when something is touched to your body. So these are the things, but it is general appearance as a normal person without having any what we can say interior knowledge about this. We just know as other people know, according that is the general appearance what we find it, and we are charmed by it, we are craved to it. As example I can give, if we hear a sound of a good music, you know, we are so much into it that without doing our other duties, we are listening the music and only music. The in Buddhism, we I want to make you give you an example where we can say when people go to vipassana, in vipassana it is taught to control the control of mind. The last step is the control of mind, but still people are caught in the sensations of the body. They are so much craved by the sensation of body that they never think above that. They just want that sensation, you know. They just into it, and if they don't feel it, they get frustrated. They go and ask the questions to the masters there. Why I'm not getting the sensation? I get it for few seconds and later I don't get it. So this is, we are very craved to that sensation which is coming out on our body. We are not going ahead of that. So these are the things what Buddha is explaining. Therefore, it is said, without going step by step, without knowing the morality, without knowing the control of senses. See, before this, we are talking about the control of sense. Without knowing the control of sense, we are going to Vipassana. First, we have to learn how to control our senses. Then only Vipassana will work very nicely. Okay, so this is the one where he says we don't have to be charmed by this. Now, the next step it comes. As soon as he has mastered all that, now again the winning, the control over the senses. Every time Buddha is saying we have to master, we have to win that step. We have to master the step. The first step was of the morality. The second step, which is in followed in two bicep steps, we can say, they are about the controlling of the senses, and we get master over it. Then only the other state. You see, as soon as he has mastered all that, the Tathagata gives him a further lesson. Thus, come thou brother, be moderate in eating, earnest and heedful to you. Take your food, not for sport, not for indulgence, not for adding personal charm or comeliness to body, but do it for body stabilizing, for its support, for protection from harm, and for keeping up the practice of the righteous life with this thought. I check my form of feeling to be new feeling, to know new feeling, and I give rise that maintenance and comfort may be mine. I don't know whether about this. Actually, this is the thing when a person is given robes, and with the robes they give a bowl. That is the pinda path. That bowl is given, and it is said to the person in robes that you have to always say these words. It's in Pali. We say it is in Pali. What is that? Pindapatang. Patisevami, Nevadavaya, Namadaya, Namandanaya, Navibhushanaya, Yavadeva, Imasakaya, Satitya. These are the words when we do the Pindapat. We take the food after Pindapat. that time we have to remember why we are taking the food. This is the step where he says, we tell them, be moderate in eating. Be moderate in eating means take the food how much you need. It should not be more, it should not be less. It is always said, it's a very great teaching of Buddha for everyone, not only person in robe, but for everyone, that everyone should understand how much food they require for their body, that has only to be taken. But general public, when they serve to other people, they never say, if we say, okay, it's enough for me, they say, no, little bit from my side. Take it little bit from my side. You know, this is going against the Buddha's teachings. A little bit more of the food taken leads to a problem, leads to suffering. So here it is saying, be moderate in eating, earnest and heedful to take your food. Now, what we have to also understand why we are taking the food. People say we earn for food. We live because food is there. And what Buddha says, we cannot die, so we have to live. And for living, we have to take food. For food, we are not living. We are living. We are taking food to live. We are not living for the food. These two things we have to understand. So here it is. Why we are taking the food, we have to understand it. And this is not for sport. This is not for indulgence. This is not for personal charm or comeliness to body. Means it is said, Namadaya, Namandanaya, Navibhusanaya. Means we are not taking it to show off. We are not taking it to show our beauty. We are not taking it to be like, I will be something great after taking this, and people will say, oh, how nice you are looking. But why we are taking it? It is for the body stabilizing, to stable the body. If you take more, it won't be stabilized. If you take less, it won't be stabilized. If we take more, we feel dizzy, we will feel sleepy, we won't be able to do our daily work. And if we take less, again we feel weak, we are not able to do our daily work. Especially here it talks about the living as a righteous life. To live a righteous life, we have to be very much like stabilizing the body. For it's supposed for protection from harm. It is harm, when we don't take food properly, it harms our body. If we take more, it is also harm. If we take less, it is also a harm. And keeping up the practice of for righteous life. So how our life should be, we have to practice. And here, right, to live a righteous life, we always say it is to take the knowledge to how to live a good life. So without food, we cannot live a good life. And with more food also, we cannot live a good life. We cannot take the knowledge. With this thought, he says, I check my former feeling. I know what happens when I take the food. And I don't want that kind of feelings which arises when I take the food. The feeling which is harmful for my body. So that kind of feeling I do not want to give rise to. And if I think of it, then only I may be comfort in my life. I will maintain my life in a righteous way to live. This is the next step after knowing all the senses, control over the senses. As we have gone through, I will repeat again. The first is the morality. Second is to not to get charmed or on the general appearance, and third is to win over the control of the senses. This is the third one. And fourth one is to the regarding the food, how, because we are living as a human being or as a living being, we can say living being needs food, and it has to be taken only according to the need to live a proper, maintained and comfort life. The next he says, then Brahmana, when he is one restrained in food, means when one gets to know how much food we have to take, the Tathagata gives him a further lesson. Thus, come thou, brother, abide given to watchfulness by day when walking or sitting. Cleanse your heart from things that may hinder you. Now he talks about the watchfulness. This is what we say, the right vyayamo. In the Pali we say samma vyayamo. That is the right vyayam, the exercise of the mind. That is the watchfulness. It is the eightfold path. From the eightfold path, this is the sixth one. Vyayama is the sixth one, seventh is the Smriti, and eighth is the Samadhi. So it comes, it in this eightfold part, this is the sixth one the Buddha is talking about, because he talks of morality and control of senses. After that, he comes on this. He says, you have to be abide given to watchfulness. Means you have to be very abide means you have to be very attentive. We don't have to give up. We have to always be watchful. And how and when? Yeah, it is explained. By day, when you walk or sit. Vipassana is, we say we have to sit and close your eyes is Vipassana. But here Buddha is not talking about this. We have to be very clear here. He says, by day, when walking or sitting, cleanse your heart from things that may hinder you. Whatever things which are coming on your way, whatever things which are stopping you from doing something, that has to be understood, and you have to clean it off. You let it go. By night, spend the first watch walking up and down or sitting, and do likewise. Means day and night, you can sit, you can walk, you can walking, sitting, in day also and at night also. Do likewise. By night in the second watch, lie down on the right side. He is explaining here how you can sleep. He says, you lie down on the right side in the posture of a lion. Posture of a lion? We have not seen a lion. We see in TV. We see in the films, we see in the pictures. So how does a lion posture is? He has to sleep on the right side and placing one foot upon the other. Means the right foot is down and the left foot is above. In that way, we have to sleep, and it has also to be mindful and self-possessed. You have to be within yourself. You don't have to think of others. Be yourself, self-possessed. Set your thoughts on the idea of exertions. What is overloaded thoughts in your mind? You have to come out of it. So you have to be yourself. You have to hold on your ideas and see if they are overloaded. You have to let it go. Then in the third watch of the night, rise up and walking up and down, walking up and down or sitting, cleans the heart of things that may hinder. Again, the same process day and night. Whenever you get your time for yourself, you have to go through this. This is a very important part in our life, but that too after mastering your food, after mastering your control over the senses, after mastering the moralities, then only you can do this kind of exercises of your mind, because this exercise, what you do, it is already there as you have mastered in everything before. So it is there in your mind. You are very watchful to it because you know what it is. Then he says, then Brahmin, when the brother is devoted to watchfulness, the Tathagata gives him a further lesson. Thus, come thou brother, be possessed of mindfulness and self-control. Now here comes the self-control, means control of mind. Earlier it was the control of senses. We say mind is also the sixth sense, you know, but the sixth sense is not control as such when we are controlling our senses. Yeah, it comes in the next step after mindfulness watching. Then it comes the mindfulness and self-control. It is after the um, mm, samma vyayamu. In going forth or going back, have yourself under control. In looking forward or looking back, in bending or relaxing, in wearing robes or carrying robe and bowl, in eating, chewing, tasting, in eating yourself, in going, standing, sitting, lying, sleeping, or walking, in speaking or keeping silence, have yourself under control. Therefore, it is said, if you are not in control, everything goes a mess. So here, while sitting, while lying, while walking, while eating, while chewing, while even in silence, there are many things what we do in our daily life. It's there, and that has to be kept in control. This is the next step. Then the Buddha says, then Brahmin, when he is possessed of self-control, when he is mastered in self-control, the Tathagata gives him a further lesson thus. Come thou, brother, seek out a scheduled lodging, a forest or root of a tree, a mountain or a cave, or a mountain grotto, a charnel field, a forest retreat, the open air, a heap of straw. See, many people go for meditation in forest. Actually, it is not the first step. It is a very later step. When we master in other things, then only this forest meditation comes on. This comes on when we master our mindfulness, then only it comes. But here again it is said, and he does so, and when he has eaten his food, he sits down cross-legged and keeping his body straight up, he proceeds to the practice the four ecstatics. So again, when we are sitting, this is all talking about the mindfulness of mind and the self-control. It talks about the meditation actual, and this meditation will lead to the four types of practices. And what are they? Now Brahmin, all for all brothers who are people who have not yet attained mastery of mind, who abide aspiring for such in the manner of my training, that but so he says, this kind of training I give to them, and they follow the manner according how the Buddha is giving the training. But as to those brethren who are arhats, now he comes here, those who are arhats, who have destroyed the asavas. Asavas is a Pali word here. It is the ideas which intoxicants the mind. As I talked of getting very much craving to the senses of the body. That is the intoxicants of the mind. That this body is now Mind has been craved by the sensation of the body in meditation. So the one who destroys this, who have lived the life, done the task, laid down the burden, won their own salvation, utterly destroying the fetters of becoming and are released by the perfect insight. For such as those, these things are conducive to ease in the present life and to mindful self control as well. Those who have gone through all these steps and they have mastered over this, they becomes the arhat. There, all the asavas are destroyed. That's what is hindering in the mind. It has been destroyed. Every burden is being destroyed, and this kind of practice helps them to live a present life and also the future life, which is very mindful and self-controlled. When this was said, the Brahman, now again it comes here. I think this is the next thing. I would explain it in another chapter because the third chapter is very small. So I will explain from point 29 to 43 in next chapter so that it becomes easy for us to understand the later. These are the till here we have understood the step-by-step training which is to be given to the person who are the followers of Buddha or who are the people of the Sangha in robes. It's very important and it has to be worked accordingly. I understand. I was able to make you understand these things, which is very important in our life, and hope we'll work further on this guidelines given by Buddha to the Moggallana. Thank you very much. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddha. If anyone have question, please you can ask.
Thank you, Bante.
Yes, Moggallana.
This was very interesting, Bante. But I just had one thing to add about the Vipassana thing, where you
Hmm.
mentioned that in Vipassana you have to only sit, which is not true because what we are taught is sitting is the first step.
Yes,
If we are
yes,
unable to experience sensations while sitting, we won't be able to do it while standing. Same way, it is also not an isolated practice. In the sense, everyone thinks Vipassana is you have to go sit in a room and practice. That is also first step because you need to be alone first to feel those things, and then the second or the later stages is when you can be with your sensations even while you're talking to other people, when you're running a movement, when you're like interacting and doing your worldly affairs. So that
yes,
is a larger goal. So that is also like a progressive step only in the training of like this thing. So I wanted to add that Vipassana is not just
um,
sitting alone or anything, but it's a progressive thing. First we start with sitting alone, and then sitting, and then walking, eating, and then talking to people. Also we are with our sensations and
yes. Yes,
experience.
Mridula, thank you for this. Actually, it is to be what I want to explain is I'm not talking here about how what is taught in Vipassana. In Vipassana, it is taught very correctly. I'm not saying on that. What people think who are doing it.
Huh.
I was on
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And the second thing I wanted to mention here that this meditation comes after mastering the control over the senses that I am saying.
Correct.
According to
That
Buddha's
also, do you
training.
mean practicing sila? For example,
Yes,
it's sila,
yes,
samadhi, and then panna. So first you have
yes,
to do precepts properly. Then
yes.
you have to move
That I
into
was explaining.
samadhi.
Yeah,
Yes, that is
yeah,
anapana. Then
yeah.
vipassana starts. That is wisdom terrain.
Anapana is a part of it,
Yeah.
but it's not a part of the one which are to be mastered first. Like the
Mm,
morality, yes, they give the Panchashil, Trishul Panchashil only in the morning first day. Okay,
yes,
later they don't
correct,
give.
correct. But they
Getting
don't
it?
practice before. Like some people, for example, I
Yes.
had already previously practiced panchasheel in a way. Like I didn't find it very hard to do that bit. A lot of
Mm,
other people struggled with it. I didn't
yes.
have it because already somewhere the discipline is there in me. I've been trained in that discipline in my school and like whatever
Yes.
by my parents. So I didn't find it. But other people, for example, there were some drug addicts that came to do vipassana. They got lost in that sensation thing that you were saying, that
Yes.
they'll suddenly start feeling pleasant sensations. They get addicted, and then they won't feel it. They'll get dejected. All of that happened. I've seen that happen. But I
Yes.
think basic discipline there would be very helpful before you do vipassana. Otherwise, it can be dangerous. Correct.
Yes, it is there. And therefore, it is said that obviously the people, those who are already Buddhist or those who know the meaning of Panchashil, they are
Yes.
into it. It is not difficult for them. But still, daily this has to be given. But it's not given Trishul Panchashil there daily because you're not in contact with each other. And
Correct.
Panchashil is to be
Indirectly
followed
maintained.
within the people.
Correct.
While you are
Indirectly, because there is no chance and
yes, no
opportunity to
chance at
break the
all.
precepts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That is what it is. Therefore, it is said when we do the practice of Vipassana too, you have to practice after coming out of it and then see how much you got it.
Yes.
Okay. So there are many things we have to go through, and this step by step training what Buddha has given here, it's really amazing.
Yes,
And
absolutely. No one
we
can be everything at once. It's a progressive thing, absolutely. And
yeah.
it's all in your
And
body.
yes, and it's not going on we are not even thinking on it, or we are no, nothing is being done in India on this,
No, actually, it is
accordingly.
being done in India, but I think SN Goenka is dead. So he can't clarify a lot of
No, no,
doubts.
no, 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 no. You're talking about Vipassana only.
Yeah.
This is a fourth step. I'm talking about the three step earlier.
Okay, correct, correct. Huh.
Getting my point? I'm talking about step by step. Vipassana is coming on the fourth step. Whether it
Huh.
is Vipassana or in meditation, I'm not talking about the Vipassana itself.
Huh.
I'm talking on the Samma Samadhi, which is the eighth step in eightfold path.
Jhanas.
Yes, understand what I'm saying? It is the eighth step,
Okay.
and we are taking it first. Therefore, it is becoming very difficult, or it is being misunderstood by people.
Correct.
Okay? Anything else? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya Bante.
Jai Bhim, Namo Buddha.
Okay. My question is, see, I'm observing some practices where the bhikkhus are being invited and the people are washing their feet, then offering food as though it is like a ritual. Okay, so offering food to a bhikkhu is different. Offering the food plate as a ritual is different. So that is happening. And then they are falling at the bhikkhu's feet and getting blessing. And the bhikkhus also offering, blessing them with their hand on their head. But these bhikkhus are just chanting mantras. They are not giving any Dhamma talk, nor they are neither talking about Sila, not talking about any Dhamma talks. So in these cases, I have been objecting to such practices. Okay, so if the bhikkhu is coming and giving a Dhamma talk, which is of very good value for our life, then there is no point, there is nothing wrong in going and worshipping that bhikkhu, because he is like a teacher. So you can go and offer your respects. But without knowing anything, just because the she or a dress, that their dress only makes that person visible as a bhikkhu. So based on that, they get emotional, they get excited, go and fall on their feet. So this, when I object, because as you mentioned in today's teaching, you mentioned that we should not, as Buddhists, we should not get excited about the external appearances. So this is being practiced. So when I object, the counter argument that is coming from the Sangha here is, because of people like this only, like me only, the Dhamma is not growing. See, for the growth of Dhamma, we must give respect to the bhikkhus, we must call them, we must blindly worship them, then only the religion will grow. Because we are talking rational things, the religion is not growing. That is the mistake that we have done all along. At least now we have to correct ourselves. We have to respect our bhikkhus, call them, make some rituals, and grow the Dhamma. So this is the mindset of some group of people. So what is your comment on that?
Very nice, Lee. You have put your points, sir. Actually, yes, it is related to this topic, but more detail it will come in later chapters. But still, I want to say here, where the first chapter we have read before this means last Sunday, it is, and also I started with it where it says, Buddha never said that he is a prophet, he is a god. Okay? He is clearly saying he is a man, and man is not worshipped. That is one thing. Then how can bhikkhus should be worshipped? That is another question from my side. Okay? And it should be a question from everyone. Why a person in robe should be worshipped when Buddha is not allowing worshipping to him? That is one thing. The second, this is happening only because the taking of robes, you know, coming in robes is never with any aim. Actually, many people which we found in Maharashtra, especially because there are many people in robes in Maharashtra itself, I found that they know that when you are in robe, you have been worshipped. Okay? We get the dana, we get the food, whatever we want, we get it. And because of that only they are coming in robes. So they don't have interest in learning Dhamma. They don't have interest in telling you the Dhamma. Okay? In Maharashtra, people are from childhood. They learn the chanting. You know, a 5-year-old child also know all the Gatha and Sutta. And when they grow up and if they have problems in living as a in job or in education, whatever it is, it's a very easy way to take robe and recite or chant and get all the things which can be fulfilled. You know, so this kind of things are here. And one who are giving robes, they are also the same. I'm remembering Samrat Ashoka. I'm remembering Samrat Ashoka when he gave more facilities to the bhikkhus. Many Brahmins came in.
Oh,
They took the robes without understanding the Dhamma. And when these things went to him, that this kind of things are happening, many wrong things are being explained by the bhikkhus to the people. He went to his master and he asked them, what is happening this? And they had a great discussion. And after that, Samrat Ashoka called for an exam of the bhikkhus. And the bhikkhus who were not able to explain the proper Dhamma, their robes were taken off and white clothes were given to them. This thing is needed at present.
Well said,
Well
Bhante, well said. Thank you.
I am the one only. I can't say. I'm also in it. Okay? But it is for the proper presentation and proper knowledge of Dhamma, we have to take this kind of step. Now the question arises, who will take it? Who will take the step? It is the Upasak Sangha and Upasika Sangha. You have to be very strong enough to understand what is happening. Alone, a person cannot do it. Samrat Ashok was the king. He was a Samrat. He had that right. But you have a right to choose a king. Okay? But still, in Dhamma, you have a right as a Upasak and Upasika and coming together unitedly, You can question the Sangha. Why this kind of things are happening? Why robes are given to person and they are left like a horse without any lagam? You know,
Correct, Bante. That your answer is very clear, Bante. It is the job of the upasakas to educate the other upasakas, so that
yes,
we ourselves make the decision who is the right bhikkhu and who is the not. So that
yeah,
sort of an education will play the role of King Ashoka here. So we have to
yes.
get that gives me good clarity. So I will continue my education. Thank you, Bante. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bante, can I ask a question, sir? The question for Bante and Dr. Rajavardhan. Um, for the last week, Buddha Jayanti festival in Kanjipuram, we are organized. We are invited one monks. That monks claim, if I want to come there, you have to give 5,000 rupees. I said, Bante, I can give 2,000 rupees. So I can't 5,000 for your present because we are struggling for economically. And so, suddenly that Bante cut my phone call. He did not come. So he did not come. So it's happened in every moment. When we are working for Buddhism, it kind of things happen. Some other monks, they are not claim any money. They are not worry about money. They, if I give, for example, one Dhamachari Sambar in Tamil Nadu, if we gave any dana, the Dhamachari return the dana to the Sangha at the same moment. So the both of things it's happening in our movement. So and the respect is if wherever I went, I expose about my opinion about Buddhism. Bante Suniti doing good things for about Buddhism. She gave good talks about Buddhism. So I exposed my gratitude. I exposed my respect without Bante Suniti, because if anybody do the great things, we need to give respect, we need to give gratitude. So it's also happening in our society, so we don't want to stop that. So we need to allow, we are the initiative time. This is the minor initiative, it's a not mass initiative. Wherever we go, we are very, very minorities, 0.1 minority. So that by this time, so in wherever our Sangha working, they are speaking about the corrections, that things. But in the beginning time, we need to allow all people, all ideas, but because we have the text Buddhist Dhamma, so we don't so we are not working without Buddhist Dhamma, we are working with Buddhist Dhamma. So Buddhist Dhamma is a Buddhist Bible. If we organized our Buddhist people, in future the Buddhist Dhamma will guide them. So that is my point. My question is, Baba Saheb Ambedkar, in the time of Diksha 1956, we have the photos of Buddha bow. Baba Saheb gave respect to Buddha. The head is down. So what is the meaning that?
Bowing is giving respect.
Yes, respect.
Yeah, and Baba Sahib said Buddha is the first guru.
Yes.
He is
So
the first
the respect.
guru.
So we need to allow respect. We don't want to hate the respect. And if I want to wash the feet of Bante,
No need.
not only no. If I want to respect the Bante, someone like to do that, wash the feet. We don't want to hate them. We will guide them, but we don't want to hate them. We don't want to neglect them. That
Actually,
it is.
Bharati,
No,
understood.
yes.
I understood your question. Actually, washing the feet is not necessary. Make arrangement to wash the feet.
Yes, Bante. So whatever it is, the attitude, it's a different one, different man. We don't want to hate them. That is my, we need to correct
No,
everything. But
when you wash the feet, automatically your body bends. Your head
yes,
also bends. Okay,
yes.
that is not showing respect. That is what you are doing your work.
Mm,
It is not bowing. It
yes,
is not
okay.
bowing. Okay,
Okay, Bante.
bowing is different and just bending while doing your work. Something is fallen down on the ground and you are picking it. That is not
Mm,
bowing.
mm.
Okay,
Yes, yes. Okay,
so
Bante.
giving water to someone
Mm,
to wash their leg is not bowing, but it's showing respect. You are taking care of them. So
okay,
that
okay,
you
Bante.
have made the arrangements. And the other
Okay.
thing, I want to say what you have explained about in Kanchipuram. It
Mm,
is like that you said that the people ask for the bhikkhus ask for money.
yes,
Actually, yes. Every bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, they are dependent on you all.
yes,
So we have to make the arrangement for their travel.
yes,
Not they should not ask more than that.
yes, Bante.
One thing. The second, whatever amount we have, just call them. Why, if we have a amount for calling them, suppose we have 10,000, why are we expecting five because can be organized by 10,000? Why we are expecting 10 because
Okay, Bante.
that also we
Mm,
have to keep in mind.
okay.
We should not go for more. Whatever our capabilities is, we have to stick to that. We have to work according to a capability. See, when we do Dhamma work, it should not result in burdening you. It should be very easy.
Okay.
You should feel good after the program. But
Yes.
if it is burdening you, it is giving you trouble, it's frustrating, you get some money problem because of it, we should handle them with care, like you minimize,
Okay, Bante. Yes,
okay?
Bante.
That
Yes,
you
Bante.
please take care,
Yes, yes, Bante.
okay?
Okay, Bante. Thank you, Bante.
Yeah. Thank you, Bharti.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Uh, JP, Namo
Jai
Buddhaya. Is it
Bhim.
audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, Mirdula.
Yeah. I'm Mrudula Devi from Kerala. Bande,
okay.
it's not a question, but you have given a correct purification to my mind because, and thanks for the same, because I have had the same question in my mind that if I bow Bande, I'm thinking that many of them questioned me many times that Murdula, you are so bold enough, but why you are showing such a respect to another person? It is not a good thing because you are respecting Bande, then your full body is you are showing like they are mimicking me many times. But I'm thinking that it helped me good way that Pardi told a good thing now because respect is not a hatred thing. That's good. I cleared my mind in that way. And second one is that I too have the same opinion that Bande has had given the insight now itself because I think that it's a work itself and it's also cleaning also to clean the other person's body. Even we are calling them bande, but we are cleaning the body of another person is just like a slavery. And still in India, many of the Safai people are belonging to from Aborigine areas. So respect and cleaning the other person's body, other person's sweat, other person's mud, and all that we are in the name of respect we are cleaning, that is Brahmanical. And Bande had given a very clear vision to me, and thanks. Just express my gratitude for my query. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrudula. Happy to hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think
Yes,
it
am I
will
audible?
be 10:45 now.
Thank you, Bhante.
We can-
You are explaining good steps because previously I don't know in Dhamma so many steps are there. So thank
There
you
are
for
many things more.
yes.
We'll be going through it. I hope I'm getting your support on this. Because of you only, I'm able to go through this book again, and with explaining you to you, I am also understanding it
Yes, ma'am.
more and more properly. Okay, thank you for to all.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you. Thank you. Vijay. Jai Vijay.
Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim.
Hello,
Jai
hello,
Jai
Bhante.
Bhim. Yeah.
Hello,
Yes.
Bhante. I have,
Hello.
Yes.
hello, Bhante. Vandami Bhante. My name is Kunal. I am speaking from Nanded.
Okay. Jai Bhim. Namo Buddha. Yeah.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to you and Dr. Bharati Prabhu for your precious time to enlighten us.
Thank you, Kunal.
Bhante, I often see in our Maharashtra some Ambedkarite movement, some Ambedkarite organizations are anti-Vipassana, and they are propagating against the Vipassana, and they say that we should stop Dalit people from being done meditation, being done Vipassana. So I cannot fathom why do they say like this. I am a Vipassana meditator and I have been doing this practice since last 4 years, and it does not impact on my Ambedkarism. So why the people propagate against Vipassana? I cannot fathom. Please, can you elaborate on it?
Yes, you are saying it correct because many people see the problems on it, you know. Those who are doing it, we found many of them arrogant. We are not putting question. Not, I'm talking about myself. I cannot say of others. I never put question on Goenka Guruji, you know. It is
Yes.
the person who are doing it and they are propagating in that way. Therefore, this question arises, and those who object without knowing it, it's not good. Everyone has to observe first, and then they can speak on it.
Right.
We can't say why they are doing it. There are many things people don't know, and they just keep on saying something or the other for others. It's not good. Going against Vipassana or following Vipassana, it is an following Vipassana or not following Vipassana is the individual question of everyone. Okay, and really it helps people for the personal development. It helps. Okay,
Although they are
and
saying that people are becoming insane,
they're
people
not
are
gone
becoming
through it, beta.
neurotic.
They're not gone through it. It is just from year to year they see and they say. Because I found many people saying, "Oh, how many you have done Vipassana?" Or they just say, "Oh, I have done so many." What's the need to say that? It should come without saying that you have done so many Vipassana courses. It should be from your behavior. You should understand, oh, she must have done meditation. She must have done, she or he must have done this. You know? So we should have friendliness within each other, whether they are doing Vipassana or not. The person who is doing Vipassana, we expect more from them that they should be very friendly with others. But if they have the ego, then it's a problem. You know, that is what it is. So it's not bad to do any Vipassana, you know. I just gave an example because of this step, which is the fourth one. I just say on that. I never said that we should not do it. For your information, I have also done it.
Yes, Bhante.
And morning and evening also we do. So it's different thing. You know, the whole time we do Vipassana. That is, we say, ध्यान से देखो, ध्यान से चलो, ध्यान से खाओ, ध्यान से रहो, ध्यान से बोलो. This is what it is. This is dhyan. This is meditation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Bhante, one
Yes.
more thing to that, one more response to that, someone was telling that Vipassana, like answering your question, Kunal, is that they are saying that many Ambedkarites, they believe that Vipassana softens the mind too much. One person told me they are afraid of doing Vipassana because if it softens the mind too much, Dalits cannot fight. So that is one perspective I heard. Okay. For
See,
me,
Yes,
I
yes.
was very upset after hearing that, in the sense that, okay, I understand that person's lack of inclination or will. But what I also felt was that, why should we be hard? Like, it is
yeah.
like they want to be able to fight, and they think practicing vipassana will make us very soft, and then we will
I
be
think,
defeated because of it.
I think our discussion is going on Vipassana.
No, because we
Anyway,
want to, like, I have
anything.
many questions about
Yes, yes, yes.
Ambedkarism and
It was going
meditation.
to be another session for this, but still, for your question, I'm just saying, anything which goes to like different ends, it's not a middle path. It creates a problem, whether it is Ambedkarite or whether it is doing a person who is doing Vipassana.
Yeah.
Those who are going to the hike, they
Extreme.
never understand each other.
Yeah.
And in Ambedkarite also, there are many people who are doing Vipassana. We can't say all Ambedkarite, and we can't say all person who are doing Vipassana are at fault.
Yes.
There are few, because of this kind of things are happening. Okay.
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 So we have to be, yes, we have to be alert on our part. We don't have to be very extremist on anything. Okay.
Okay, Bante.
Too softness is also a problem, and too harshness is also a problem.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
We should go through middle
Good
path.
matter. Good
Yes,
matter.
Buddha has taught the middle path. We have to go through that. Even if you want to fight as an Ambedkarite, the Ambedkarite never said to take a sword in your hand. He says you have to take a pen in your hand, and while taking a pen, you have to go through all the situation first. You have to understand it, and we have to take out the solution before using your pen too. But when we take a sword in our hand, we never think of a single word of it. We just use the sword. For pen, it is not like that. And Baba Sahib is very clear in giving the pen, that those who are Ambedkarite, they should understand this. Okay? I think we should stop here. We have a good
Yes,
discussion
Bante.
again.
I
Bante,
want-
I-
It's great.
excuse me, Bharati, I want to talk.
Yes, doctor. That way.
Bante, with your kind permission, I want to reply to Bharati's comments, because we both are traveling in the same state. In Tamil Nadu, Bharati is also taking up Buddhism in a very good way. So
Yeah.
I think we must have a common understanding.
Yes.
That is why I want to reply back to Bharati. Kindly permit me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. See, to Bharati, I'm saying, see, Baba Sahib bowing before the Buddha statue is not wrong, and we are not saying that is wrong. So, but taking that as an example and bowing before anybody who is coming in a saffron robe is not correct, because that is the mentality our people are having. All the Dalits are going to temples, falling at Brahmins' feet, and already they are considering that some supernatural power is going to save them. See, Buddhism is wakening them up. It is awakening. It is telling them the natural reality. So reality is within you. You are the power, not somebody, some supernatural power is not going to control you. So this is what we are trying to educate. So when you ask the people to come and fall at the bhikkhu's feet, you are not educating them. Or at least that bhikkhu should educate. See, this is what I am emphasizing. But to answer your point, I just wanted to tell you two things, Bharati. First
Yes.
one is, when somebody is going against Dhamma, we must educate them. See, educating is not hating. Correcting them is not hating. Correcting them is actually loving. That is
Okay.
because we want them to come in the right direction. So Buddhism is teaching the right path to everybody. That is what is the love. The important Karuna is teaching Dhamma. So when I'm trying to tell them the right path, when somebody is going against Dhamma, it is actually out of love, not out of hate. So that is first thing. And the second thing is, at what point of time? You said we are in the formation, initial formation. Now we should not say, let everybody join together. Then later on, they themselves will realize based on the Buddha and his Dhamma, to which I am not agreeing. See, when in the formation stage only, we have to be more careful. It is like a foundation. You cannot build a house hastily and say later on we can adjust. See, the
Oh.
foundation has to be strong. It has to take more time. So even if it takes more time, even if you get less numbers, bring awakened persons into Buddhism. Don't bring herds like goats and sheep. Just don't bring them, make them fall in Buddha bhikkhu's feet. That is not developing Dhamma. So that sort of a Dhamma will not help
Okay,
in.
so I think
Yeah,
it's
that is-
getting too late.
It will not help in establishing Saddhamma. See,
may I
our ultimate goal is
May I
Saddhamma.
leave, please?
Yes,
May I
yes, Bhante ji, please.
leave? Jai Bhim, take care.
Jai Bhim.
Namaste.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, I am agreed.
Thank you, Bhante. Jai Bhim, Bhante.
Understand.
One more thing, I agree with Dr. Govind Raj very much. And I think this is also the time, like for Bharti, like this is something I've also noticed that in a rush when we do, like I was reading about means versus ends by Dr. Ambedkar. There is a quote in his volume 1 where he talks about whether means and ends, like can we do anything to get an outcome that we want and what are the costs of it, right? This is what we want to pull people in by any means for like a noble, so-called noble end, and what happens because of it. And he writes very clearly that while we are focused on one end, we should not forget there are many other ends also.
Yeah, correct.
அது நம்ம விட்டுட்டா அப்புறம் அந்த end பிடிச்சதுக்கு அப்புறம் we'll have to suffer with the lack of other ends. So we should be mindful that we are always working towards multiple ends. If we want people to convert to Buddhism, that is one end. But do we want them to understand and then convert, or do we want to just convert them? Is that the only end? Or do we want bright Dhamma practicing Buddhists or just namesake Buddhists? Two ends, no? Those are two ends. Or do we want
Okay,
them to
thank
learn
you.
about it and realize things and then convert? Or and do we want them to later on be helpless? Do you want them to, isn't Dhamma about empowering them, then just converting one set of helpless people to another set of helpless people? So we should be very mindful as more like, you know, maybe people taking on leadership roles. Yeah.
Yeah, I agreed, both of you. Thank you. Okay. Doctor, I need to speak with you, doctor.
Now, okay, Bharti, I'll call you. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thank you. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya.